People do not like to be sold, but they like to buy. And people like to buy from people that are winning. So if your energy is like, you're pushing really hard, or you're a struggling salesman or something like that, yuck. I'll stand them by the mirror and they'll be like, really? Yeah, do it, dude. Dude, this is weird. I know it's uncomfortable. This is where you're going to grow. Because guess what? If you can look in that mirror and sell yourself, you can do anything.
That's what makes people legends in the industry, in my opinion. You're able to take a new guy and go out through all that pressure, through all those phone calls, through all those errors, right?
And that's not just with sales. That's with anything, right? I'm not here to get, I'm not here to take, I'm not here to use. I'm here to add. How can I add value to you? And if you want to get paid like other people can't, then you have to be willing to do what other people won't.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Success in Motion. Got a phenomenal guest today, Drew Neiertz. How are you, brother?
Phenomenal.
It's good to have you, buddy. This guy is a top sales guy, man of service, dude. And I had to get him on the show today, man, because I want to extract some of these, key skills that you got and your character. We've been friends for quite some time, dude, and I've watched you elevate in ways, dude, and inspire the people around you, change your environment, dude, mentor people, dude, and it's super inspiring, dude. So thank you, dude, for coming out with me and sitting down with me. It's awesome, brother. How you been?
Really good, man. Super blessed.
Yeah.
Life is good. Firing on all cylinders, zero complaints.
That's awesome, buddy. That's awesome. One of the big things, Drew, that's always stuck out with me, dude, is your ability to drive. And we'll go into this in a second. And I want to go into kind of your journey, because in some way, shape, or form, we're all relatable, dude. We come from the same place, dude, from that rock bottom, situation that really defines you, man. And you, out of everybody that's relatable inside our circle, our group, or relatable to where we come from, I've always seen, dude, that you almost stand out even more, dude, with your drive, with your hunger, and your ability to climb, dude, and produce. And I'm talking about high performer type stuff, right? And that's what's really intriguing to me, dude. And anybody that's listening, this is real special, because everybody wants big things out of life. Everybody wants to be a success, and they want to accomplish things in a fraction of a time than the normal man, but they're not prepared to go the distance and the lengths, right? Sure. But with that, so I love you for that, bro. You're a freaking powerhouse, man. So thank you for that. But every journey starts somewhere, man. And I know that we're in some way, shape, or form, dude, we're built, right? And where we came from and what we went through, right? So, your journey, we met many years ago, dude, and there were some things that took place with you, right? I know that you were on a fire crew, and I know that, like all of us, right, we had great things and we had defects and assets about us, right? And those overcoming aspects is kind of where your journey really takes hold, right? Yeah. Can we first start off there, dude, and talk about what you really learned, right? Is, and it could be accountability, it could be just work ethic, it could just be, hey, for the first time in my life, dude, I'm ready to propel in that direction. And I kind of seen that, dude, right? I wasn't in it with you, but I was a bystander that looked at that.
Sure.
And I believe that in some way, shape, or form catapulted you to where you're at, bro.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like that chapter in my life, I really feel like I can't take a bunch of credit for it. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, like, we make decisions, and stuff like that, but in large part, we're also like a product of our environment. And before, that chapter, as far as being on the fire crew and being around guys that had high character and prioritized integrity, that's when that kind of started to, rub off on me.
Yeah.
Amongst a sea of negativity and people that were celebrated for doing like the wrong thing, right? There was this select group of people that had the courage, to do the right thing. And so, respect is this word that gets thrown around a lot. And I was severely disillusioned as far as what respect really was. Like, I had fear confused, with respect. If you feared me, you respected me. What I came to find, kind of by being on the fringes and looking at guys like you, was that dude, I respected you guys, because you were kind of doing something different, you know, as the minority of people that were doing that. And I found that I came to respect that. And so, yeah, I kind of started associating myself with these people and adopting, some of these principles and some of these philosophies. And you talk about growing pains,
Yeah.
it was difficult because the crazy thing about, fear is, dude, it's so powerful. It had kept me alive my
Yeah.
whole life. It had got me out of a bunch of jams. It was the fuel that I was, using to go on for 35 years.
Yep.
So to take the leap and pivot off of that was difficult, but best decisions I ever made, and really try to still, like you said, hold myself accountable to, everybody wants to be a real dude. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, that's a real motherfucker.
Yeah.
He's a real one, solid ass dude,
Yeah.
right? But when you talk about being like real, how real can you be with the man in the mirror?
Yep.
You can set smoke screens and do all this other stuff, but when you're hitting your grill in the morning, or you're shaving and you got to look at that dude in the mirror, dude, you know what you're looking at. And to be able to, so oftentimes we turn that needle on other people, take their inventory, say this, that. But if we take that needle and turn it on ourselves, dude, that's when we can really start to go,
Yes.
and look at yourself and say, I saw when you did that, I saw when you made the wrong choice. I saw when when you thought the wrong thing, when you did something for the wrong reason, and then take the next step to say, I'm going to be better. I'm going to force myself to be better so that when I come back and see you tomorrow, I can feel better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's what it's all about, dude. I think in any man's journey, dude, there's a point, dude, of self-awareness and action that comes through mistakes and lessons, but being around the right people, right? I know through my own experience, man, I'm not a perfect individual, but when I put myself in that arena, right, I constantly just sharpened myself. Every person that I've ever sat and maybe interviewed or asked serious questions, whether they were super more successful than I am, character-wise or financially, or they were somebody that was trying to chase me down, right, because I had a little edge on them. It all starts in that circle, right? That self-awareness, those characteristics, the open-mindedness and the humility and the surrender. Those are the things that truly matter. I believe it's almost like when you're building a home on a foundation, right? For the first time, we said, you know what, dude, this foundation's not going to be built out of sand, okay? It's going to be rock solid, and it's always formed in the mud. It really always is, dude, through trials and tribulations and stuff like that. And we're always super relatable about that and that story right there. And when we embarked on this journey, it was almost like we came into the arena of sales. Now, when you get into sales, this is the greatest thing of all, right? We all went through something, right? We all traveled through life, dude, and we were in our 20s, right? Moved into our 30s. We made mistakes, ups and downs. Did you have any sales experience before you walked into the roofing industry prior? I think you worked for another roofing company for a little bit, right?
No.
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 Yeah.
I had a brief stint where I did some door-to-door stuff.
Yeah.
Selling oil change cards,
Wow.
when I lived in Kansas City, and was pretty good at that. But not
Right.
not a ton of this. When I found out that everybody was doing this roofing thing,
Yeah.
and I was kind of gearing myself up to come do this, I literally thought, and they said that you're knocking doors, like, I knocked some doors before, but I literally thought that I was going to be like walking up to people and trying to like literally sell them a roof,
Yeah.
which I was like, dude, that sounds, but guys are doing it, it's obviously
Yep.
not outside the realm of human capability. So here I go.
Yep.
And then I went out and I trained, and I was like, well, wait, dude, we're just talking someone into a phone call here.
Yes.
Like, let's roll
Yep.
all day. But yeah, really, like, for me, if we're talking about sales, I started nerding out on it. I started to like watch videos on the psychology of sales. Dude, like I used to box, and my coach would tell me, dude, don't throw and hope, aim and fire. So that meant that I needed to like know what I was aiming at.
Yeah.
And so I started to delve into like the psychological underpinnings that would compel, you know, people to buy, or more importantly, and then like I even took it a step further as far as like, dude, what gets people to act on impulse, you know?
Yeah.
And I really started, you know, looking at all of this stuff and understanding some of that, and then went out there and kind of played with it, you know, at the doors with homeowners and stuff like that, and just through, you know, being forged in the fire, figured out, you know, what worked and what didn't.
Yep. What do you think some of the biggest skills of your character really come out when you're walking into sales? And a lot of people say sales is all about connection, right? It's all about positive attitude. And some of the things, dude, it's all about connection. And you have an edge on all this because it's not so much just about, well, I'm going to work today, I'm putting the hat on. It's about a lifestyle. Everywhere you go, every single thing that you do, you're connecting with people. Just the other day, I was at this wedding with you, right?
Got that video. That was funny.
It was great, man, right? But through that, I'm sure in your mind, you were just super inspired, right? And you needed to connect with those individuals,
Yes,
dude.
yes.
And I understand that, and I respect that, dude.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere you go. And it goes even deeper than this, Drew. It goes really, really deeper. That's why sales, we're getting into the sales, but sales is attached to development. Sales is attached to progress within oneself.
Sure.
There's no doubt about it. And you are a powerhouse when this happens. So for the people that are really listening to this, these sales guys, you're really good at spreading this message. This is your forte here, right? And so I want to go into those characteristics of positive attitude, maybe how I start my morning, maybe the connection with individuals, but dude, dive a little bit deeper when you're connecting with people outside the roofing industry, right? Dude, making that you're just interested in them, dude. It's the tone of your voice, it's the fluctuation, it's the emotion that's inside of you, right?
Yeah.
It's how you make them feel. That will always bleed into wherever you go. And that's one thing when I see you, I'm like, whoa, dude. I love it, bro. I look at that right now and I'm like, dude, that's just so inspiring, man. It really is, because no matter where, it starts with your child, it starts with your wife, it starts with your family, it starts with the people that are underneath you, who you're leading, your business, everything. Most people think, dude, I got to put that hat on, I got to go to work today, I have to connect. It's not have to connect, bro. I get to connect. This is what I do.
Yes.
That's where you excel. What are some things that really stick out to you in your daily program to where you're like, dude, this has changed me?
Well, yeah, I think about like, dude, who do I want to connect with? Who do I want to associate myself with? Winners, right?
Yep.
So it's, you know, there's a saying, PMA equals OPM, you know, positive mental attitude equals other people's money. Whether I'm out there getting my head kicked in or not, I always try to tell myself that I'm winning. Here's my life hack for to not just like force myself into thinking a falsehood, but actually feeling like that and being able to carry that energy with me throughout the day. Dude, I get up super early and I stack cheap wins, right? Quick little prayer and meditation in the morning, get a little spiritual win. I'm up at the gym before the phone starts going nuts, you know, so I'm in there at 5 o'clock getting my physical, you know, win in there. That way, before my first appointment at 8 or 9 o'clock, I've already got 2-3 wins, you know, locked and loaded. The momentum's going, the juices are flowing, and I'm not just like pulling up to my first, you know, appointment half groggy, ready to go. But people want to associate themselves with winners. People do not like to be sold, but they like to buy. And people like to buy from people that are winning. So if your energy is like, you know, you're pushing really hard, or you're a struggling salesman or something like that, yuck, you know.
But what we were talking about, Drew, was we were talking about sales, and we were talking about characteristics that you've developed and you've created, right? That, that kind of bleed into the sales. And I gave you some really good feedback of just an outside perspective of some of the things that I've seen you do outside of the work environment, dude. That's really a connection, that superior positive attitude. And you were kind of talking a little bit about how you operate, how you start your day, how you wake up and you get your workout in, and you cross off things, right? And you start early collecting wins.
Yes. I'm just a firm believer, man, that how you do something is how you do everything. So I'm going, all the way, which means I am studying. I'm constantly watching film on myself. Something crazy that I do, and I tell my guys to do that it's super uncomfortable and they hate it. I have them pitch the mirror. It's so uncomfortable and it's so weird, but you become like aware of all of these little nuances with your face and gestures, and you're like, the thing, like, what you're supposed to say, right? The person at the door doesn't. You can mess it up 5 times, they don't know any different, but what it's good. And sometimes, when I'm doing that after my morning routine and I blast one out there, if it doesn't feel right, I stay there until it does, and I kind of like, dial that in. Yeah. And I have my guys do that, and I'll stand them by the mirror and they'll be like, really? Yeah, do it, dude. Dude, this is weird. I know it's uncomfortable. This is where you're going to grow, because guess what? If you can look in that mirror and sell yourself, you can do anything. You can sell anybody. But I think that just, having the mindset, here's the thing. There's a million reasons why you're going to go out there and fail, not just in sales and anything. But I think that when you talk to people that are like masters of their craft, there's one reason that they are, and that's because they absolutely refuse any other outcome.
That's right.
Right? They're willing to go to any lengths in order to find solutions and find what works. It's so easy to talk yourself out of doing that in so many different arenas in life. But having the mental fortitude to continue to, dude, I can't tell you how many times when I didn't have anything at 5 or 6 o'clock and had been out there since 10, but it drove me more. Dude, I did not want to come. I did not want to go back to the Granville house, empty-handed. So it's like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, boom, finally got when it's dark. I'm up there trying to take my pictures and, go back. Hey, how was your day, dude? I cut off at 3. Just wasn't my day. I'll get it tomorrow. So like all of those little mortgages, all of those little concessions that you make, kicking the can down the road, when you could have just pushed just a little bit more and just say, dude, I am refusing to blank today. And if I do, it's going to be because the roofing gods absolutely forbade it. Yep. Because I'm leaving it all out there in the fields. I'm not going to come in and say that I didn't do absolutely everything in my power to be successful today, right? And not just sales, but with anything, any sort of goal, that I have. You set these goals, you break them down, you put them on paper that way. And I always tell my guys this, to put it on paper. That way it's not just this theory that's off in the ether. It exists in the physical world. It has length, it has width, it has dimension, it has weight. Mm-hmm. This thing has power, now.
I love it, brother.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, I love it, dude.
Yes.
That right there, you just touched on something super powerful. And I always say, everybody's got their own, it's almost like same song, different tune. But when you hear these different tunes from these other high performers, you're like, wait a minute, wait a second, bro. I'm going to plug and play that, brother. Hey, I'm on it. The average man, I always look at the average man. There's nothing wrong with being average. I don't need to judge them and push on nothing. But the average man is going to work from 9 to 3, from 10 to 3, right?
Sure.
To accomplish more, to push to greater heights, to accomplish what the average man does, you need to push in those barriers. So when I think about that, and I hear you say that, Drew, when you reach a breaking point, David Goggins always says 40% rule. Okay.
Sure. Yes.
When you reach that, when Drew reaches that breaking point, he comes alive. He just showed up. when everybody else is depleting their tank and they're done and fried. That's mindset, that's attitude, that's determination, that's a state of mind that you create.
Yes.
That's so powerful that it's unreal. Therefore, the progress that you make, the success that you make, is unlike anybody else because of that window. You excel in that frame, in that window, in that circle, dude, when other people don't. But if we beat into that a little bit more, brother, listen to this. Your mindset, that means your attitude, your drive, you just created. I've always talked about this, that an idea is great, but when you put it on paper and you write it down subconsciously, your brain, as you sleep, what you do, when you cross that off the list, bro, you're bringing another thing into it, dude. Self-esteem, confidence, a surety in oneself, right?
Yes.
It's a belief, and that's what it is. And not only that, Drew, you're injecting a very aggressive, take no for an answer, dude. I will not give up warrior mentality into this. I don't care, brother. We got 15 minutes of light left. We're hitting one.
Oh, yeah.
That right there, bro, is what all high performers do. Every high performer, bro, when you sink down in mud, you don't back out of it. You dig into it. That's what I love about you. That's what inspires me. I love you, bro. I love that because in reality, just a second ago, we talked about getting into a roofing industry that we both agreed that produces its self-development in disguise. Every other salesman that I've ever seen inside the industry, and I never try to judge anybody. If you want to sign a deal a month, bro, sign a deal a month, right? But everybody's intrigued into coming out and trying to do this, accomplishing $200K a year, $500K a year, $1 million a year, whatever it is. But they hit that window and they back out and they wonder why. Right? There's a lot of lessons, dude. That's a rarity, man. It's insane. So for anybody listening, and I know you've already gave a ton of knowledge. I love it, dude. I dig this, man. I'm in it with you, bro. For anybody that's listening, that's out there in any sales game, any platform, whether they're selling windows, right, or they're out there selling roofs, man. What advice do you have to give them simply because of that window that you just talked about? That's where you're going to pick up, dude. I love it, dude.
Here's the insane thing. If you possess kind of like maybe 3 or 4 chips that other people don't, or are just unwilling to exhibit, you automatically put yourself in the top 10, 15%. I'm talking about focus. I'm talking about discipline. I'm talking about commitment. I'm talking about resiliency, right? So many people, like you just said, just kind of take that, middle of what the enemy of great is good enough, right? So just by possessing those 4 things, you automatically put yourself, above other people. Now the other part is, how much of a student are you going to become? How much are you going to thirst for knowledge, check your ego, and get with other people? Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Get with those people that have what you, and for me, it was like you, Sean, Adam Tronier. I wasn't out, swiping, chasing girls around. Dude, I was at that Granville house. Dude, show me this, show me that. What do you say when they do this? Wait, how do I do this? How do I do that? All of those little things. Dude, it was like life and death, for me. I had to have a way to figure it out. And so I really thirsted for that knowledge. But for anyone out there, that's listening, I would just say with sales, it's a numbers game, right? It can ebb, it can flow. There can be floods, there can be droughts. Be in love with the process, not the results. Because that kind of goes into the discipline aspect. We know if we have a deck of cards sitting right here that we are going to flip over 4 aces. It might be the last 4 cards in the deck. They might come nice and easy throughout the deck. It might be the first 4 cards we flip over and then we're dead the whole rest of the thing. But we know that if we keep flipping, that they're going to come. You have to stay committed, focused, and disciplined to the process. And more so than that, if you think about it like as a mathematical equation, you also have to limit the amount of variables that you got to have in there. If you do the thing correctly, your only variable is going to be that customer, which means that you are, or your prospect or whatever, which means you are applying the exact same formula in the exact same manner with the exact same effort, energy, and attitude, which is the only things that you can control in order to, get those variables and figure those things out. Because you start turning knobs on all that other stuff, now you have a bunch more failure points, and now it's tough to diagnose what it is, that's going on. You got to keep that one you have to have your systems and processes in place, dialed in, and that can take, a lot of self-inventory and self-reflection, and also giving other people, whether it's, your manager or other people that you work with, the permission to hold you accountable.
Yes. You know what's crazy as you're talking, dude? It's for a lot of people that don't know the roofing industry, it's a lot of responsibility, because we're talking about sales in general and reaching, and we're talking about attitude and really the fire that carries us. But the real deal is this: as you go out there, Drew, and you sign 3 deals, 5 deals, 10 deals, 20 deals, okay? Now we're getting into a whole nother realm, okay? Now to do that month to month, just like you're saying, you better have a process, man, because you're going to get smacked. You're going to get hit. Not only that, let's add one more thing. Let's add a downstream of people that rely upon your attitude, your positivity, your shining light, to where you are coaching, but you are absolutely mentoring people. And that's what makes people legends in the industry, in my opinion. Right? You're going out there, you're selling 20 deals, you're doing 5 to 10 builds and keeping up that pace, which I have sat back and watched you excel for years now, bro. There's an attitude, there's a process that you're using, there's a take no for an answer. But not only that, what really resonates with me, Drew, is, dude, you're able to carry people on your back, bro. You're able to take a new guy and go out through all that pressure, through all those phone calls, through all those errors, right? And one homeowner doesn't know where the check goes. Another guy right here says, hold on, dude, we wanted these vents up there. You're going to get hit all day long, problem solving. In this industry, I've always said it breeds entrepreneurship. I've always said it breeds an abundant ability to lead the masses. I'm not talking about one guy. I'm not talking about family. I'm talking about the masses. Every great legend I've seen in the industry is born and built through these processes. What are some of the processes or mindset that you have, that you've created? Because I know you're like any other man. You've reached your limits and you've adapted, overcome, but created processes, just like we all have, right? When you're running 20 deals a month, you got 3 new guys, you got a solar that didn't turn on, and you got to get this guy over here. You're replacing windows. You're working with all these vendors, these contractors, multiple different pieces on the board, dude, during storm season. Oh, yeah. It's no joke, bro. And for anybody listening or even watching to this, you can't even relate until you're there, okay? When you're in the arena with these people like you, right? They're high performers inside the industry. Dude, I take a knee. My hat's off to you, brother. Like, it's insane, bro. It's super powerful, because it ain't easy, and nobody knows until they get on that bike and start riding down that path, bro.
That's for sure. I truly look at it as a privilege that I get to do this. I'll tell you a story. I was a year and a half into this thing, and Adam was trying to pump me with guys, and I said, I don't want them. I don't want to deal with other people's headaches. I don't want to deal with other people's temperament, attitude, disposition, stuff like this. I want to go out and get my issue and make my money and just, only do that. He constantly said, dude, you need to do this, you need to do that, forced me to grow, right? And in doing so, I really started, so I get these guys on, and I'm like, dude, this guy is not just like a paycheck to me. Like, this is, and a part of that, the natural progression was these were like people that I knew, so I felt so obligated, like I had to make these people succeed. It wasn't like, oh, I'll throw them at the wall and see if it sticks. But dude, I cared about them, and I didn't take shortcuts, and I answered the phone call, and I went over things 5 times until they finally got them. And each person is different. You know, the way that one guy's going to be motivated or needs to be talked to is different from this girl over here, which is yet again different from this individual over there. And it's just like you were talking about making connections. You have to like understand your people, and also like the important thing with leading a team, especially in this industry, is they don't care what you know unless they know that you care. So you have to also make a very conscious, concerted effort not to just care about their numbers or their jobs and stuff like that, but also to take care of their well-being, you know. And then once you kind of develop that outside, now you're not just, you know, training your competition, you also have an extreme amount of loyalty. So you're also not able to just retain, but the most important part, to retain your people, because they feel that loyalty and it's real, you know, because you put in the mental, the physical, the emotional investment to let you know, dude, I care about your success. When you asked me for this opportunity, and I told you the ups and I told you the downs, and I told you that I'm going to give you everything I had, and that wasn't just lip service, that I've actually demonstrated that over a large sample size, you know, of time now.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. That's incredible, dude. That's just one of the hardest things to accomplish, dude. Because so many people, they get into that mode where you talked about when you first started talking was, I don't want those problems. I don't want that. It's stressful. It's pressure. I've always said that it's a breaking point, and that breaking point is a doorway or a barrier that has to be yanked out and pulled out. And the one thing we got in common, Drew, you're going to love this, brother. Big shout out to Adam Tronier. He relieved us of that, and he crammed it down our throat, yes. Which, listen, you know, I love you and I hate you for it, but dude, nowadays it's almost like I love it because you can relate to me when I say, when I did that, I remember getting out of the truck throwing up. I remember almost getting fistfights with guys that I had to let go. I've went through a lot, dude. I've went through tons. But when I created that muscle, because it wasn't even present, all of a sudden I was that much more of a shining light. I was that much more of a leader, and I was able to see a whole new perspective. And that's the great thing about leadership, man, is everybody starts somewhere. And when they start to get in and lead people, they start to see the changes. But inside this industry, what we do is we sell dreams and promises to our buddies and our friends and our family. And we are obligated to fulfill those.
Yes.
And sometimes it works out great and other times it doesn't, right? And it's very similar to starting a business, dude, where you're going to have successes and failures. You're going to have to adjust your character and your communication and your help. You're going to have hard conversations with individuals, right? You're going to have to learn to create processes and procedures and checklists, right? And accountability processes of expectations of people. I could dive so deep into this because this is our life right here, right?
Yeah.
For anybody that's in the roofing industry, I hope, dude, that they really listen to this stuff, because we're talking about powerful stuff. Everybody's got a vision of wanting to create a team. Everybody, you know, looks above and says, "Oh, it must be nice, right? It must be." Everybody sees that. Must be nice. But in the end, man, it's not easy. It's not easy. Those breaking points inside of that are unreal. But I will mention this to you, and I know you can relate to me. It's super powerful. This is stuff that money can't buy. You can't buy or purchase better leadership. You can't buy or purchase a better character and attitude to build your business, right? You can't do it. It exists through that window of what you stay inside, that barrier. I'll take another guy. I'll take another one. I'll take another one. I'll lead him. I'm the one. I'll take another one. Being able to sit down with that individual, and this is one of the things that I like to pride myself on, because it's a challenge today that I used to run from and now I specialize in. Being able to work with somebody to get him from point A to point B, and when he reaches B, I'm going to mentor him to a better way of living, right? In his mind and in his heart, right? That's, dude, I never had that. So that's what the roofing industry can breed if you're in that small circle of people that functions in the window that you talked about, which is incredible, right?
Yeah, one of the things that crosses my mind when you say that, you know, I'm on some of like these, you know, forums and groups online and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm pretty active on there. I'm always like, you know, hey, you know, DM me if there's anything I can do to help. Dude, I probably have 8 to 10 guys throughout the country that I get no sort of monetary gain off whatsoever, that I've developed a relationship with, that these guys, it's so common, you know, when people say, dude, my manager doesn't answer the phone, you know, this, that. The best ability for a manager is availability, right? Sometimes someone will call me, hey, here's my problem. Okay, and I'll know the answer. What do you think, right?
Yep.
What do you think is the solution? And you just kind of like sit there and watch themselves, come to some logical conclusions. And, most of the time they talk themselves, pretty close to the right answer. Maybe you need to steer them, a little bit or something like that. But, dude, you just gotta be available. You just gotta be willing. You just gotta care about their people and understand that, dude, it is a lifestyle. It's not a job. For me, with every single, one of my guys that I bring on, dude, I think once you get to a point in life where you're not worried about where the mortgage payment's going to come from or how you're going to make it, or how, this bill, or, if you're ever going to be able to take this vacation, the amount of money that you have after that point there's a severely diminishing return on investment on that, right? Hey, I know that I'm going to be okay. I've got a pretty big cushion. So now what matters? Running that bank account up really doesn't matter. Here's what I've found that really gets me up and gives me meaning and purpose and everything else is just like the people that reached a hand back and took me to now help another individual, right? Go through that same process, go from the $5,000 truck, not having a whole lot, and then literally just, motivating and educating and uplifting him and watching him go through that process. That's like, when it was like my first 5 or 6 months and it was like my addiction was those checks, once they started rolling in. Now that's just like, whatever. My new addiction is now watching that, with these other guys and having just a conveyor belt, So many of us come from the recovery community, and here's the insane thing about that. The way that we're wired is like we still have these mental obsessions, right? Mm-hmm. But dude, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
Right.
If you can like harness it and put it towards something that is not only good for you, but something that is like enriching everybody that's in your sphere of influence, right? And I think kind of through this platform, a lot of us that shared that same defect have now been able to take that and turn that into an asset. And it's centered around, once again, kind of going back to the program, dude, being of service to others. It gives me meaning. It gives me purpose. It's what gets me excited to get up and go out in the morning.
Yep.
Yes.
It's all revolves around service, dude.
Yes.
And I was just getting ready to jump into that, dude. And you just moved right into it, dude, flawlessly. That's part of our identity and purpose, right? And I think you're right. I think that's why we really, really do well inside of that. And there's phases. There's a lot of phases to that. When we're done today, I move on into. And I just want to say, dude, I'm so grateful to be in great company with you, dude, because this is our deal, right? This is our jam right here, bro. When I'm done, I'm gonna go into coaching somebody else, right? Into that window, what you talked about, Drew, how do I get them into that window? It has nothing to do with coaching anymore. It's all mentoring. It's all vision board. It's that physical depth and weight on that paper and creating that state of mind, which is attached to everything you're talking about, where we came from, not only in the industry, but our service to that. It has nothing to do. I'm not motivated to say, hey, you're going to make me more money when you do this. I'm motivated because if I can shape and shift you, I've just helped your family, your future, your mother, right? All that stuff. So it's even bigger. That's what you're talking about, that power right there. And we're doing it all over, man. And there's some people, dude, that are really, really good at it. And there's some people, dude, that are kind of average, but everybody loves the feeling behind it. Everybody says, well, dude, this is worth more than money, really.
Yes.
That's really what it is. And there's that is a part of a platform or another dimension that is a very, very cool place to be in. And that's another thing that the industry really breeds, dude, once you get really, really good at it. But getting into service, man, I believe that it's been embedded to us for quite some time. And there's things that you have done. Here recently, I watched you on Facebook, dude, and you created this food drive. You and guys were out there. So the service goes far and wide, not only inside the industry on a day-to-day basis with all your guys, right? Which that's huge because all of our time is invested in that, but you're doing other things, man. So talk to us a little bit about some things that you're involved in, and you do a lot, bro. And it's super inspiring because that's what it is, man. You've shown that through your hard work and success, you just want to give it away, dude. That's it, dude.
Yeah, I mean, dude, just, a lot of personal stuff. And it's like, like when people know that you're successful, and you have resources and stuff like that, generally, if they tend to, hit a tough spot or something like that, dude, they'll just come ask. And going back to that man in the mirror thing, I want to keep kind of touching on that because it's real for me. Anytime that I have an opportunity to help someone out, and I've said no before, and it doesn't sit right with me. Dude, I'm a God-fearing man, and all of these blessings and everything that I have that have been put on me, I feel that like the second that I start to get greedy and start to stop blessing others will be the minute that the whole thing, comes crumbling down. So generally speaking, if somebody around me needs help, I just help them. And I operate from a position of love and not a position of fear, and a position of abundance and not a position of scarcity. And said, and it doesn't always feel great, but I feel like as long as I continue to do the next right thing will be provided for me, if that makes sense. So as far as service work, just like you guys, we've had some customers that, that really got screwed, that we just said, hey, you know what, we're going to take care of you. Service work within the community, as far as, speaking, sponsoring guys, outside of roofing, trying to mentor people that are put in like that. And then, yeah, every once in a while we like to put a few bucks together, for a good cause and help some people out. But dude, that's, I can't even say that it's from like an altruistic standpoint, and this is really how I feel about it. Dude, I feel I have a debt. I got a lot of red in my ledger, When the curtain closes, I want to be able to stand in front of whoever and say, I tried to pay.
Yep.
I tried to pay, so I feel like an obligation, in order to do these things. Like, it's not like a choice. It's like, dude, I owe, and I need to pay my debts.
Yep. And that's a beautiful thing, dude. That's a beautiful thing. And it just shows like the more the industry evolves, right? And the more we're built up and we are successful, then we're helping other people. Cause I can relate to you 100% on that. The service work goes into, saving, really showing guys a whole nother realm of life in the industry, changing their lives, their family through the process, but also, customer base, like you mentioned. Also, certain things like the food drive, or, there's an instance to where I've helped many different people travel or go do things in the youth programs, right, and stuff like that. And that's cool, man. That's cool because these children and these kids, the foster care deal, and I love it, man. And we all get so busy, and I believe that it's super cool to see that as we all move forward, we're moving that ball forward. We're trying to be of service every single place that we possibly can, and that's really what it's all about, dude. Because we got to give back, dude. With that being said, I want to ask you. It's been awesome to have you come out here, dude. I could sit and talk to you for hours, dude, about sales because I'm super interested in it. You know what I mean? I love it. But in life, dude, in sales, we talked a little bit about the character that has evolved through sales, right? We talked about, who we are outside of the industry, some of our best traits that kind of bleed into sales. What are some things, or what are some successes? Here's a better question. What is your definition, Drew, of success inside life, in the industry, all around, dude?
Adding value. I think that there's kind of a paradigm that exists. And, sometimes, you hear people talking and stuff like this. And I think even other people that aren't in the arena of sales, have kind of an idea that it's like a predatory industry, right? Like salesmen are like predators, and maybe there's some people that don't really kind of do that viewpoint favors by how they choose to look at it. Dude, I think success in life is adding value. Dude, any relationship that you are you adding value? Any relationship that you have, if if it's just about two people, right? Whether it's business, whether it's personal, whether it's professional. Hey, what can I get from you? And on the other side, what can they get from you? You know, that's not a formula for success, right? Because as soon as, one person's not getting the other, as soon as the convenience, right, or the benefit on one side is the other, now there's no relationship left. Boom, they're gone. I think a much better viewpoint to have is not what can I take, but what can I give? And if you can get both people on both sides of that equation to just not be asking, what can I take, but what can I give? You are now operating from a position of symbiosis, right? Which means no matter what happens, that's never going to break up, because the other person's not saying, hey, I'm not getting mine. I'm out of here. I'm going to go get it. It's, dude, what can I give? Why am I not getting, what I need from you on the other side? Do you need me to give more temporarily so that you're able to give me what I need, right? It's just about how you're framing it in your mind. And that's really one thing that I try to like explain to my people and my team and my culture is, dude, you are not out there taking. You are out there giving. You are adding an extreme amount of value to these people. Yes, you're going to take something away from it. The homeowner's taking $20,000 and put it in the most valuable asset that they have. Yep. They are winning more than you. Everybody wins. So it's not like, and also you got to think about like the energy that you're taking out. It's like, oh, I'm trying to get somebody today, right? Dude, no one wants to get got.
Yep.
Hey, my name's Drew. I'd like to add value. Here's how I'm going to add that value. That is a much better position. And when you're carrying that energy with you, it's going to propagate out and other people are going to pick up off it. And that's not just with sales. That's with anything, right? I'm not here to get, I'm not here to take, I'm not here to use. I'm here to add. How can I add value to you?
Well, that's powerful, bro. That is powerful. I love it, brother. I love it. With that being said, I want to beat down on one more question I got for you. There, you got so much to give. It's great. What do you have, or what do we have to give right now for anybody that's listening, right? Maybe it's a step-by-step process. Maybe it's 5 things for a high performer, right, that's really hit a plateau. And I know this is your get down, right? This is your get down. People out there that have really just stepped up on the mountain, right? And once they get there, it's like the champ, right? Once you've won and you're in the circle, it's like, how do I keep the title, right? And most people, dude, we've seen them, they duck below and they go back down, and it's an ebb and flow. What are some things, Drew, to give these people, right? What are some characteristics or 5 things that we can give them on how to keep that high performance up, not only in the industry, but in life itself, dude?
Sure. Well, I think as far as sales goes, if you're like the top person for like a year or 2 or 3, that's cool. But at a certain point, it's like you're like the college kid that's still going to high school parties, right? Once you've demonstrated the ability to be able to do that consistently, now you have to replicate yourself, right? Companies and corporations and stuff like that, dude, top people come and go. One thing that AI will never replace, that will always be in high demand, is a leadership. Can you build other people, and can you build leaders? And, when that comes down, so, how do you lead? How do you get somebody to look at you and say, that's somebody that I want to lead? Now put this in your pipe and smoke it. Most people, like you were saying, are on that average, which means they're grading themselves on the curve. Drew signs 20 a month. I'm not going to sign 20 a month. I'm going to sign 6, 7, 8, and that'll be good enough. There's 2 ways that you can go about getting them to produce more. You can go to them and sell them, work more, do what I say, blah, blah, blah. That's a boss. Yuck. Yep. Maybe you get a good response. Maybe you don't. Here's what a leader does. He says, dude, I'm not going to go out and sign 20 this month. I'm going to sign 30. Because the only way, if they're grading themselves on the curve, the only way to raise that curve is to raise yourself, right? So that when they're looking and saying, oh, Drew did 30, man, I need to go do 15. That's leadership, is being able to, raise the standard and the expectation so that brings everybody, up with you. 5 things that I think that anyone that's in the industry that's hit a plateau that wants to level up. I think that's a really good question. 5 things. I think I touched on some of them earlier. Focus, your discipline, your commitment, your focus, your discipline, your commitment. 5 things. God, that's a lot.
Consistency.
Consistency, right? And I think really, when it also comes down to it, just sheer will and being honest with yourself.
Yep.
And it goes back to that thing that I was talking about, the man in the mirror. I always say that because that's so important for me, because it's like, dude, I saw, where you only worked half a day last Thursday. I saw when, you called it good, with one contract and took off, back to the house at 3:00 or whatever, because you got one, because you could have stayed out there more. It's about always holding yourself accountable to the umpteenth level, to where you say, I can always pack in a little bit more to the stream of life. There's things that I can do better. I can refine my processes here. So it all comes from being able to take that and turn it within and being honest, right? Being a real motherfucker with yourself about if I'm not where I want to be, the first question I always need to ask myself in anything is, what's my part? Right?
Yeah.
And then being honest with yourself, taking that inventory, and then not just making the decision, but actually following through and doing those things. Because the reason that we're not doing those things is because it's uncomfortable on some level. That means that we have to sacrifice, something. So then we really need to ask ourselves, what do I really want more? Is to obtain this next level, or keep that thing that I'm not willing to sacrifice? Because there's only so many hours in the day, right?
Yes.
And that's just a conversation that you have to have with yourself. If you're not willing to sacrifice that thing, whether it's family life or this, that, or a kid's soccer game or something like those, dude, that doesn't make you a bad person. Mm-hmm. But you talk to people, there's a guy that's down in Atlanta, and I loved him. And he's like, dude, there's 2 types of dads. There's like the dad that's the coach, and there's the dad that sponsors the soccer team.
Yep.
He's like, dude, I am not there because I am just absolutely out there getting it. But guess what? They have perimeter roofing on all of their jerseys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, he's not willing to sacrifice his production and being in the position to be able to do that. But what he is giving up is being able to spend that time. But that's where he's at. So those are just things that you have to, really kind of difficult, honest conversations that you have to have with yourself is, do I really want what I say that I really want? Everybody wants something until the bill comes due.
That's right.
Am I willing to pay that bill?
Yep. Yeah. That's exactly what it is, bro. That's super powerful advice, man. I love it. And I think that window, right? You really talk a lot about that window. That window, in my opinion, when I hear you talk, bro, is relentlessness. It's a state of relentlessness. And Drew has the ability to flip that switch on and go dark. And I mean hyper, dude, all the skills that you just said, it's a recipe. And you're literally flipping the switch and everything comes into play. But that, in general, is what produces results, which creates high performance. That right there. But the thing about it is everybody's different. So I've always said, which basically goes what you're talking about, what's your why?
Yes.
That guy in Atlanta, dude, everybody has their own why.
Yep.
And with the why comes sacrifices, determine everything, right? So that high performance, if you're out there, dude, and those 2-3 builds ain't enough, bro, and you're spinning your wheels, the window that you've talked about, that window of high performance, you've got to figure out in your own mind how to flip that switch of relentlessness. Everybody that I've ever seen that are a high performer, dude, I always think in my mind, what the heck, dude, did he go through to have to get him there? Or what switch? Dude, it's a window, it's a circle, it's a platform, it's a switch, it's a state of mind. It always is. And I always relate it to almost like the Marines, dude. When you're out there and you are relating everything to life and death, nothing else comes into that circle. You're prioritizing that state of mind on a high level of functionality. High level. And you flip that switch, Drew. You have created that state, that muscle, that mindset, dude, to go dark and flip that thing. And we can dive into it 1,000 different realms, but every single high performer that we have ever seen has the ability to flip that switch and create that state. And many different people, when that switch is flipped, like you're talking about, they don't want to sacrifice. They don't want to work till dark. They don't want to go deplete. They don't want to go hungry. They don't want to push the. But in reality, if you were to create a why inside of it to say your family gets a better life, you get a phenomenal retirement that you never had before, you get that security and that peace and everything. So it's crazy, dude. I'm fascinated with this stuff. I love it, bro, because so many people want things, but they're not adopting analogies, platforms, and mindsets of high performers. They're just not, dude. And we're digging into this is why I'm here. This is how Drew got to where he is. Right there, that switch, dude. Everybody's like, Drew did what? He signed how? He did what? Well, dude, it's like, what's your why? What is Drew's why? That's really what it is, dude. It's insane, dude.
Yeah, I mean, dude, there was no safety net, right? There was no family, there was no this and that. And I was absolutely traumatized thinking about the possibility that I would fail, you know? So it's like, it was literally just like life or death, you know, for me. It was either, you know, go move furniture, dig ditches, or go take this with no guarantee of a paycheck and figure it out. And I said, you know what, dude? I see these I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to figure it out. Being so hungry that you absolutely, it's like literally like a life and death thing. To where you've got to go out there and get it. If I don't kill, I don't eat, you know, and doing that. But here's what's even more crazy, and this goes into being more committed to the process. You know, if you look at, you know, the leaderboard over at where we're at currently, you know, the top 5 guys up there are all guys that are that have been doing it for years. So what does that tell you? That's like, dude, it's more about the process and the mindset than it even is the results, because there's no turn it off. And dude, I feel guilty. I feel guilty if I don't turn that switch on.
Yep.
And go out and hunt. But dude, I love it. I love the process. I love that it's difficult. When it gets even more difficult, some people, you know, say, "Oh, dude, that just motivates me more." You know, nothing worthwhile in life is easy. And if you want to get paid like other people can't, then you have to be willing to do what other people won't, you know.
Yep.
Having that mindset. One of the things that was crazy that I always think about on the fire cruise, dude, it was my first fire, and we went all the way like up this super steep mountain, and like we get up there, we crest this peak, and I'm looking, it's leveling out, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God we're up there. It went like this, and then it went right back up, and I was like, oh my God. So then we get up there, and now we're at the fire, and dude, I am smoked, and now we got to start working, you know.
Yes, dude. I love it. That simple thing, I bet you, is ingrained in your mind. And that story that you just mentioned, right? That short little story is a platform or title to your standard that you set today. That's how you thrive. That's how you operate, dude. It's phenomenal, dude, because that's life. Nobody's going to hand you nothing, dude. So be prepared when you get to that peak. It's just begun. Let's get it.
But you know what? The only way that I made it up there was finding strength in the person next to me, because I saw their boots moving and I heard the victim noises coming out of their mouth. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you want to go fast, dude, you know, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Just a person alone can be crushed, you know, but a group of dudes that are all moving together, right? With a common purpose, with a common ideal system, with a common belief in core values, dude, you can't beat that. You can't crush it.
Yep.
You knock one off, that's going to rally the other guys, you know, around. You know, I really feel like I can't take a lot of, I get on these panels and I do all this and win s'mores. I feel so much like, going back to the product and environment thing, and I see this with other people at other companies. I'm a big sports guy, and you got this highly touted recruit that comes out of this school. He had a phenomenal college career. He goes to this he's like the first pick in the draft or whatever, so which means he's going to like the worst team, and he sucks. And to me, it's like, dude, that's the organization, right? And now you got some of these players that are like, hey, check it out. Don't draft me. I'm not going to come play for your organization. So it's so much to do with like the people that you have around you. Who's your owner? Who's your general manager? Who are your coaches going to be, right? Because they're going to be so much a part of your success. So, you alone, you're just a person. You have to surround yourself, people, with the right people in order to become an all-star, an all-pro, a Hall of Famer. No one just gets there alone on God-given talent. That'll get you to the table. But the character, the discipline, the coaching, the allowing other people to hold you accountable and say, hey, dude, guess what? You went out and scored 30 points a game, but you should have scored 40. And here's why. Good job. Do better. Well, I scored 30 points. Yeah, you should have scored 40, right? And being able to take that and be like, dude, coach is right. Dude, Matt's right. Adam's right. And just, dude, to have good people that are going to develop you around you. So if you're out there, if you're in an organization, if you're in something like that, you're looking around, like you're wondering like, hey, am I being developed right? Stuff like that. Or you're thinking about, coming into the industry, make sure that you're surrounding yourself with high integrity people that, just like Matt was saying, like, what's your why? I think a lot of people say, yeah, take you on, see what I can get out of you, not answer my phone, hope to make some money out of it, instead of people that are really going to like invest in your success. Why? For money? Yeah, there's going to be probably some money that comes from it, but it's because that's what they care about. That's where the value is.
Wow, dude. I love it, dude. I appreciate you so much for coming out, dude. Some of the things, when I'm around you and we're talking, dude, I'm becoming better because of this. This is the power of sharpening each other right here. I love it, dude. I'm super passionate about it. I know you are, and I hope that everybody that comes across us talking, dude, especially in the industry, it's really going to shift them, because we're talking about situations and obstacles that everybody's going to face. Every single person can relate to this inside the industry, in sales and in a self-development aspect, right? But dude, some of your story, dude, Drew, you're an overcomer, right? You've created a window from your rock bottom, right, that enables you to flip a switch, dude, to go into a dark mode, bro, I'm talking to create legendary results, man. And I think everybody, no matter what, you have a report card, stats, if you will, if you're a football player, bro, that are undeniable. It's just undeniable, man. So these things, dude, I've always thought, dude, bleed into like coaching, right? And mentorship and motivational speakers. And I know someday, dude, you're going to walk into that realm. I just know it, bro. I really, really do. And that's some of the places that I find myself and where we're going, dude. And I love sitting down here, dude, and sharpening our swords together, dude, and just trying to dive into lessons and wisdom of what we've learned a lot across the way, dude. And that's really what it's all about, dude. So, dude, thank you for coming out, dude. I really appreciate you. It's been an awesome thing. And I would love to have you back, dude, where we can dig deeper into this stuff, dude. Because I know as well as you, there's people out there, man, that they may not talk about it. They may not say anything, dude, but they need to hear it, man. Because it's a very dynamic situation, the industry and sales in itself. And I've always said, myself, dude, if you're out there and you're working a job and you want to start a business up and you want to have your own freedom and you want to do something you've never done, sales is what breeds that. Sales really does, man. And these conversations about how to deal with the functionality of your team and your people and how you carry yourself in life, dude, is something that you need to adopt to be able to walk inside the arena of things like this, dude. And you've really showed us that today, dude. And I appreciate that, dude.
Dude, thank you for having me. I just want to, touching on what you just said, I want to leave with this. If you're thinking about in the industry or you've been on the hamster wheel for a while and you're wondering when things are going to change and you're thinking about making a pivot, dude, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you are right. Bet on yourself. It's tough to be on that hamster wheel. It's also tough to take a leap of faith and go do something else. Find the organization, find the right people, believe in yourself, and stop just, going and getting paid. When you're getting paid to, for time, there's only so much time that you can trade for money. There's always going to be a hard cap on what you can accomplish. When you start getting paid off your results and your worth and your value, now all of a sudden the top comes off the thing, which is going to put you in the position to be able to provide for your kids, your family, your loved ones, and everyone else that's going to be put in front of you in your sphere of influence that was meant to be put in front of you. You have a duty and an obligation to bet on yourself and go make that happen.
That's right, brother. Super powerful. Thank you, brother, for coming out, dude. I enjoyed every single second of it, dude. Thanks,
I love
man.
you, brother.